All right, Bulls and Bears back with another dose. BX4 News Economic Reality, folks. The numbers are out. The economy is tanking for most people, and it's pretty close to about the number of people living paycheck to paycheck. We just had the news out here that about 70% of people think the economy is on the wrong track. 70%, and that's about the number of people living paycheck to paycheck. So the top 10% especially, but the top 10, 20, 30%, doing better than ever. And it almost seems like it's going to get to a point where the bottom 70% will just be working to serve the top 10, 20, or maybe 30%, right? So it's going to get very interesting, but the numbers are bad, folks. We just heard, a week ago, how the hiring slowed down basically to a crash. And now there's a blackout data because of the shutdown. How convenient. The job numbers are the worst they've been in many, many years. And now we see this economic data blackout just in time to cover up the bad data. And we found out last week that reported hiring was lowest since 2009. So, folks, we've been all the way back now to the financial crisis and the number of jobs being created, the amount of hiring. We also found out, 2 months ago, that all the jobs over the past year were overstated by about 900 something thousand jobs, right? So the data just needs to be completely revamped and reformed. But we don't just look at numbers. We don't just rely on data. We hear from people, and we're going to hear from a few people here talking about how some people still scraping by, other people falling under the pressure of having to pay off these high credit card balances, right? It's very interesting. We're going to look at a debt chart here in a little bit, but first, take a look at this. And I want to ask you, do you think that there's a lot more anxiety out there and depression and just stress in general because of the debt loads right now? We're going to talk about how much worse the debt is now versus the 2008 financial crisis. We're going to talk about that here in a few. But take a listen to this. Tell me what you think.
I feel like the lack of money that people have now is really just starting to compound anxiety, depression, anger. They're short fuse. People are just getting, it's even worse to me this year than it was last year, but fuses are getting shorter. You see people that any kind of issue comes up, whether they're in a store, just anywhere, people are just automatically, they're getting the shakes, they're getting angrier faster. People are not having the amount of patience they used to have. It really comes down to emotional intelligence, and people are not able to manage this anymore. And I'm starting to see people break. I see people constantly all day, and it just seems like it's starting to just kind of compound. And I don't know where this is going to go. Bills are not getting cheaper. Nobody's getting paid more money. Matter of fact, companies out there are quietly reducing things like perks, benefits, bonuses. So in a way, you're actually making less money probably than you might have made in the last several years. And at the same time, everything just continues to go up. The aggregate numbers, I bet everything put together, you're probably almost double your expenses that you were before if you add up every single bill you have. I just don't know where this goes. People just people are not making eye contact with you out in public. Less and less people are smiling. People just seem on edge. They seem agitated. They're just in their own world. And it's like everybody's got their brain on a hyperactive thing, about stress, about money. And man, the lack of money is just going to break people. Money doesn't buy happiness, but money buys your peace. It buys options. It buys your ability to survive and to enjoy the things around you. And if you ain't got no money, well, everything else around you crumbles. And man, I don't know, man, but people are just getting less and less pleasant to be around, and they're just getting more agitated. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that's.
Is he the only one? I don't think so. I don't think he's the only one. And he said something interesting there. The saying goes back a long ways, really long ways. Money doesn't buy happiness. Is that really true? Money doesn't buy happiness. I've known people, and I've myself been at points where I haven't had money and I was happy because I was doing things that I like to do. Time off and doing things you like to do can make you happy. So money doesn't always create happiness, but it sure makes it a lot easier, right? Because the times when I remember I was the happiest and I was doing whatever I wanted to do, I had money. And there's been times where I've lost my job and I was happy. I'm like, okay, great. I got a year's worth of expenses lived up back when I was single, didn't have any bills, and I could just do what I wanted to do. I could travel. I could go to the gym half the day, play basketball half the day if I wanted to. I was happy. So money didn't buy me happiness, but if it buys you freedom, or if it allows you to have free time, then it can create happiness in that way. You have to have something, though, to make you happy. It can't just be money, because you have to have, I think, a lifestyle to make you happy. But again, if you have money, sometimes that can lead to you doing the things you want to do. Someone that's traveling nonstop, never having to work because they have so much money, they could just travel, go to different restaurants every night, go to different wherever, go visit relatives, go visit friends in different states. That's fun. I love traveling. I'm kind of bogged down with the family now. I can't really do that. But in my, what's the saying go? Footloose and fancy free. Yeah, in my footloose and fancy free days, I was trying to think of a saying that my mom used to say. And, I was happy back then doing those things, right? I'm happy now. But I'm just saying that a lot of people find happiness in this or that. Sometimes it's freedom, sometimes it's travel, having free time. For those of you that are still working 40, maybe more hours a week, when you get a week or two off, if you get that much off at a time, aren't you happy? Isn't it a good feeling? I know teachers that get summers off. And by the end of the school year, they're like, oh, thank goodness we get a few months off. I'm not going to do summer school. I need a break. And hopefully they saved up enough money to get by during those months where they're not getting paid. Also, back in Michigan, I used to know a lot of people, and I used to work for companies that used to shut down in the winter. I worked at a summer one time, for one summer, at a paving company. Right, we went in and paved driveways, road. We also did blacktop, what they call that. And we would shut down during the winter because of the ice. We just couldn't do it. Those people were happy, folks, that they were getting shut down. This is back when the cost of living was not bad. And you could go a few months. If you saved up your money, you could go a few months and still get by without working, right? Those were the good old days, which wasn't that long ago, 20-something years ago. But now things are completely different. A lot more anxiety out there. A lot of people stressed. The paycheck crowd, 70%. The same number of people that we just looked at on the survey that said the economy is headed in the wrong direction. All right, we're going to get into more of that, but take a listen to this next.
Let's talk a little bit about how depression keeps you broke. About a year and a half ago, I was going through the process of my divorce and was just mentally completely checked out. I was experiencing crazy financial ruin, trying to pick up the pieces of my life, trying to take care of a toddler. It was just a lot going on, and I just had episodes where I was completely depressed. So I ended up having to get my really nice luxury vehicle repossessed and ended up having to get this kind of cheap cash car. And in the whole process, me just trying to transfer the car into my name and get insurance for it, I totally dropped the ball. I did not realize that the insurance agent had put my luxury car on my insurance policy and did not put the new one that I had in fact just gotten on my insurance policy. But now that I'm in a space now where I'm emotionally healthy, I'm taking care of myself, I'm trying to get back on my business, looking at all my paperwork, being okay, what needs to stay? I was oh my gosh, this car's on my insurance policy. So I call and ask what is the rate now with the car that I have, bought last year that was supposed to be on my insurance policy, and come to find out I was paying double what I should have been paying this whole time. But honestly, it was the mental load of just even going through paperwork and trying to get a new car, having my other one, repossessed, the whole thing, it was just so overwhelming to me, and I was in such a depressed state. I didn't even go through the entire contract to see that she had changed the car info. Now, scenario 2, my daughter goes to a school that is kind of on the expensive side, and she does get it subsidized. So the program that I go through, they have all these different protocols, things that they do. And maybe several months ago, I realized I couldn't log into my portal. Now this portal is what you log into as a parent when you need to pay the other balance, or they give you updates on what you need to kind of keep your child on the program. So all of a sudden I get a call from my child's principal talking about they're not paying for this month. You're going to have to come up with it if they don't, because they haven't sent me any paperwork for this month. So several months ago, when I realized my portal wasn't working, I should have called then. But being in a state of just depression and everything, I was well, whatever. If there's really, some sort of terrible issue, they'll email me or call me or whatever. And I just kind of let it fly. So I'm like frantically on the phone, like this whole month, just like going back and forth with them, trying to figure out what the issue is. They can't figure out what the issue is. It turns out there's some sort of glitch in their system or whatever, but they ended up being able to fix the issue. But over the past, I want to say 1.5 to 2 years of me just having like ups and downs of going through depression, like I could literally see either the money that I've left on the table or being overcharged by different companies just because I'm in such a depressed state. Like even just going through the mail sometimes like was a huge burden to me. So if you're somebody who struggles with depression like heavily and you're just like, why can't I get on the ball with my finances? Like, why am I always in the negative? Why am I always stressed out about money? Like there's definitely a correlation there. Like I'm not even gonna lie, but you're not incapable. It's just honestly your depression is getting in the way of you being financially stable and you being on top of your finances and stuff.
Folks, theme there. Common theme is financial problems, depression, and stress, and the anxiety. And sometimes the anxiety of just thinking about your finances makes people not want to think about it, right? You heard her. She had a car on her insurance for, sounds like a long time. She didn't want to look at her insurance bill, or maybe she did and didn't notice it was doubled, paying for a car that you don't have. Folks, pay attention. Checking out and not paying attention and just having your head in the clouds. It may feel good to just do that and kind of like you're spaced out, right? People that drink and things like that to escape, that's kind of the same mentality. You're trying to escape your problems mentally and emotionally, but it's just going to make things work, folks. Make things worse. You've got to stay on top of your finances. If it's bad, just think it could get even worse if you're not on top of it, right? Don't waste money. Don't have a car on your insurance that you're not paying for. Don't have automatic payments set up where you may forget about them. I know people many times, as a person who talks to clients, people many times are paying for things that they were not aware of. They didn't check their credit card statement. They didn't check their bank statements. And sometimes payments came out for years, and sometimes they thought it was something else, but then really it was something that they didn't even want or need, but they didn't look into it. They didn't look at their statements. And other times people are so busy and stressed out, working so much, they just don't have time, right? You get off work. If you have a family, you have family. Maybe you have to make dinner. Maybe you have to take care of a relative or someone that's handicapped, right? All these things that different people have in their life that can cause a distraction and make you really not stay on top of your finances, right? Pretty interesting. Take a look at this, though. Listen to this. A good example of how much money you need to make just to get by modern day.
I've made over $8,700 net take-home pay for the month of July, and I still had to dip into savings to cover all of my bills. I've made previous videos of this in the past, but all of my monthly bills total up to over $8,000 per month. My house, this right here alone, cost me over $5,000 for the mortgage payment. This is my paycheck that I'm getting paid today, over $4,400. And this was the total on my last paycheck that went through 7/18, $4,300. My total take-home pay for the month of July is $87.66. And this is how much money I had to take out of my savings and put into my checking account to pay for all of our bills this month, $1,175. So this is the amount that I have worked in for the month of July. This first week I worked 4 shifts, so 1 overtime shift. The next week I picked up 5. However, I got canceled this last day, so I only worked 4 days this week, so 1 overtime shift. The following week I worked 4 days, so 1 overtime shift. And then this week that I'm currently on, I worked my 3 regular shifts. This day, which is today, I do an education day, which was only 4 hours. And then this shift is an extra shift, which will be overtime. Hopefully, fingers crossed that I work that shift. So overall, I was averaging about 48 hours per week, which is pretty low for me.
48 hours a week is low, folks. I would never want to work 48 hours a week, but I've been there, I've done it, but it's not something I'd want to do for that long. And she says that's low. I'm thinking she might be in the medical industry, maybe a nurse or something.
Usually like to keep it within the 50 to 70 hour range per week.
50 to 70 hours a week, folks. I have to keep pausing. I just can't believe this. This is just wild to me.
Next week, I plan on working almost every single day, 12-hour shifts, to try to get a little bit more ahead and just to recover from this past month. I'm going to make a part 2 immediately after this to explain a little bit more about some stuff that's been going on that's been costing us extra money, including the temporary job that my stay-at-home husband has gotten and has been working, which has ironically cost us a lot of money, him being gone. I'm sorry if I look absolutely a wreck. I am very tired because I am not sleeping. It's in the middle of the day because my kids are home and my stay-at-home husband is not here. I cannot sleep, and I'm normally asleep during the day. Okay, on to part 2.
All right. Maybe we'll check out part 2 of her video, folks. Did you hear what she said? She's wanting to work 7 days a week. She said she wants to work every day, 12-hour days. And you heard her say she has family. That's a common theme. The more mouths you have to feed, the more expensive things are, the more stress you're going to be under to pay the bills. It's not just you that's going to be homeless if you don't pay the bills. Not just you living in a tent. Try to have a tent full of family members because you didn't pay the bills, you got foreclosed or what have you. You can't pay the rent. And people are just stressed out 7 days a week wanting to work 12-hour days. Insane, folks. I just can't imagine the stress and the anxiety that these people might be going through. And you heard her say she's tired. So these weird hours and long hours that she's working when she's not at work, when she's off of work, instead of resting, everyone in the house is probably awake. Maybe she's working through the night and now she can't rest because everyone in the house is still awake when she's not at work. Crazy things that just, I think a lot of people are going through that we don't really think about. All right, how's about some tips? How's about a strategy on paying down some credit card debt? Take a listen.
Hi, hello. You should be making a daily credit card payment if you are in any sort of credit card debt. And I made a video about this and it triggered a lot of people. And let me just reiterate who I am talking to. I'm talking to the people that are in credit card debt that are either middle or high class, that, let's just say middle class actually for this engagement. Let's say you get Starbucks multiple times a week. You're going out to eat multiple times a week. You're doing Target trips, a couple times a week, whatever. You are frivolously spending extra money. That is who I'm talking to, because that is so many people. So many people are in credit card debt and are just making the minimum payments and this will just pay itself off, because it won't. So skip the Starbucks today and make a credit card payment instead. Let's do it. This is my Kiwi Pop app. This is how I make my payments because it keeps all of my cards in one app. I don't have to.
Skip the Starbucks, folks, if you can. So many people are hooked on the caffeine that they can't do it. And the people that aren't hooked on a drink, caffeine, are just hooked on spending, right? Shop therapy, retail therapy, that's what they call it. All right, well, let's get into it, folks. I told you I would show you the debt chart. It is scary. It is the most recent version of this chart that I have. Let me go ahead and bring it up here and show you. And here we go. Take a look. We're still waiting for the third quarter to come out, the third quarter debt numbers. But we do have it at the end of the second quarter, and we can see compared to the 2008 financial crisis, look how much higher we're at, folks. Every form of debt is higher. Mortgage debt, which was the big explosion back then. So many people at once couldn't pay their mortgage. People thought this would never happen again. Look how far ahead we are now, how far above that we are now with mortgage debt and every other kind of debt. But yet, it seems like they've almost engineered a way to keep people from defaulting, right? Kind of right in the middle, like people aren't defaulting in mass, right? The numbers are getting higher, don't get me wrong, but people are not yet defaulting in mass. So it's kind of like it's an in-between time. It's not a collapse where people can't make their payments. They're still making their payments, but they're finding ways to scrape by working a lot of hours, like the woman we just heard from a few minutes ago. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, balance transfers, getting roommates, moving in together, side hustle, second jobs, gig economy jobs, right? Selling things on eBay, all these extra things that people are doing to scrape by. Is that what's preventing the collapse? Because when you look at the debt back then, when things imploded because so many people just couldn't pay their mortgages, versus now, I mean, you would think that this would be a much bigger crash and collapse than it was back then, but they found a way. And what the way is, folks, it's the banks. Back then, remember, banks were on the verge of failure. So people didn't get the credit card limit increase. They didn't get the mortgage that they wanted. Now people are still able to borrow money. They're still able to go further into debt. And that's what keeps this economy still moving and what keeps things from imploding, right? The ability to borrow money. And if you don't believe me, just look at the chart. I mean, all this debt is borrowed money. whether it's a loan, a credit card. We got everything in here from what? Credit card debt, student loan debt, automobile loans, of course, mortgages, the big one down there at the bottom. Folks, this is a debt-based economy. It's a borrow and spend economy. It is a borrow, spend, and pretend that everything's fine. But people are stressed out, like the guy you heard from at the beginning. People are stressed out. They're short-tempered, I think, and I think they're tired too. And I think there's a lot of depression going on because of the financial situation. Let me know what you think about this. I hope you're doing good, right? I hope everything that we've talked about here keeps you ahead of the financial curve. That's the goal here, folks. Not to wallow in pity for these people. I do feel sorry for a lot of the people that we look at, but people have it a lot worse in some other countries, right? We're not getting up worried about mass casualties around us and things like that. Hopefully you're not anyway, depending on where you live. But we got troops on the streets of America right now. Things are getting crazy, and I think they're going to continue to get crazier. That includes financially, and the cost of living, I think, is going to continue to rise. Tariffs are kicking in. We're going to get into that more in our next video, how much the tariffs are adding on to cost of things and goods and even services. Make sure you're in tune for the next video. Make sure you're got the notification, subscribe, all that good stuff, people. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye for now. Peace.